Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
It's not a salami sandwich. It's a viable baby in the womb.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Friday, and I have a special guest for you today. Welcome to the show, Farron. Farron Cousins, Ring of Fire, Farron Balanced. Good to have you.
I'm excited to be here. This is a wonderful opportunity, so I definitely appreciate you inviting me on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you making the time to be on the show. Always a good time having a conversation with you, my man. And again, thank you for being here. We're going to have some fun. It's a fun Friday. So, all right. So, look, the stories we're going to talk about, of course, Kellyanne Conway. New book. I remember covering it and saying, please don't buy the book. Well, you're going to be surprised, or maybe not, that people actually listened to me for once and didn't buy the book. That's fun. We have Ohio passing horrible bills. Big surprise. We got MAGA versus pizza. Weird. Marjorie Taylor Greene saying insane, dumb things. So again, nothing unusual here, but we're going to talk about it. Matt Gaetz, of course, being Matt Gaetz. And all this different stuff. So we've got a lot of stories, a lot of stuff to cover. So I guess without further ado, Farron, let's get to it.
I'm ready.
All right. Former White House counselor Kellyanne Conway's new book is not going too well. Her book tour, her book sales, her memoir titled Here's the Deal sold just 25,000 copies in its first week, according to NPD Book Scan, and has already dropped to a low of 126 on Amazon's bestseller list. It's super, super sad, especially when compared to Mary Trump's Too Much and Never Enough. That sold about 1.3 million copies in its debut week, as well as Michelle Obama's book, selling over 1 million. And look, even her former boss, Donald Trump, sold about 240,000 copies of his coffee table book. So altogether, very, very sad. Joining the likes of Meghan McCain with her incredibly poor book sales, selling just 300 during her first week. I, for one, of course, am very, very thrilled that this is a complete flop. Nobody needs to hear from Kellyanne Conway. She is a horrible person. But you know what, Farron, let me get your thoughts on this.
I'm sure Meghan McCain is looking at this like, oh my God, that's amazing. If only I could have, hit this Kellyanne Conway level of sales here. But it's really funny. You know, you mentioned in your intro, you told people, do not buy this book.
Yes.
I had said the exact same thing. And I even mentioned, like, I hate to tell people don't buy books, because you should buy books. You should read books, but
reading is good.
Yes, reading is wonderful, but just not this one. And not only has this book been obviously picked apart by the fact checkers, you know, just so many claims in it, easily verifiable that those things didn't happen. But when you have Donald Trump himself coming out and saying that, hey, what you're saying in your book is an absolute lie, then yeah, that's going to turn off the only people in this country who would be willing to buy it in the first place.
Right.
Like, you got an unendorsement from Donald Trump. So that's definitely going to weigh heavily on the minds of the MAGA freaks, because, yeah, sure, she was loyal. She was wonderful. She was also pretty much the leaker from the administration, which they don't want to acknowledge. But the boss says no. The boss says it's lies. And then, even funnier than that, after he said that, she came out and defended him. Like, she didn't defend her book. She defended him. So if you're not even willing to go to the mat for your own work, then yeah, it's pretty much a piece of crap at that point.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned that she defended Trump. Here's what she basically called him: protective and a great girl boss. Oh, what a girl boss. Donald Trump. Wow.
Unless you ask, you know, any of the women who actually worked for him. Yeah, they've got different stories to tell.
Exactly. In fact, ask a lot of women who are even in proximity to Donald Trump. They'll tell you some stories. Like, for example, Eugene Carroll. She's got a story to tell. I wonder why he doesn't want to hear it, though. Yes. But
you know,
again, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, it just also, you talking about that brings up all of these other kind of forgotten but still ongoing stories. You know, like the E. Jean Carroll massive lawsuit that could prove that he sexually assaulted somebody. That we don't have a resolution to that yet. And that's just something, like, people, I know there's so much to think about in any given day, but there's still so many big stories out there. Like, please try not to forget about these things, because they are pretty massive with big implications for the future of politics.
And let me just add in too, because I think you'll be personally interested in this one. You know, we kind of forgot about, you know, the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and then here you have Michael Avenatti getting sentenced. I think it was 4 years?
Yep. 4 years for screwing over Stormy Daniels. And yeah, Avenatti is certainly not a fan of me, nor I of him. He got super mad at me one time because, you know, he went after AOC on Twitter. So I made a joke, a quote tweet, and I said, hey, maybe you need to worry about some of your own problems here, bud. Very, like, light jabbing.
Sure.
And then got this horrible DM from him. And then he immediately blocked me, but basically said I'm a joke. And I call myself a lawyer, which, like, no, I don't. I'm not a lawyer. Never have claimed to be. And then I get blocked and he gets thrown in jail. So, hey, it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, it all worked out. It's funny because he was a little bit salty about that whole thing, which just kind of shows, you know, that he's a little bit of a beta male. Hopefully he enjoys his nice vacation in Club Fed. But getting back to Kellyanne Conway real quick, again, this is basically pitting liar versus liar at this point. You know, there are no good people in this story, so it's sort of like a let them fight situation. But some of the more famous lies that we've kind of forgotten about was the whole Bowling Green massacre. Remember that? Alternative facts, coming up with that phrase. And I just all the different, I mean, even look at some of the personal family drama with George Conway and you know, her daughter or their daughter. And it's just like, what a completely dysfunctional family. And then they're kind of airing all their dirty laundry just all over the country. And this book, I think people had enough of it and just were not interested. in anything that Kellyanne Conway had to say, and I think that's a good thing. Like, we need to be over this person and a lot of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you on that. And I do think that played a big role in these pathetic sales. I mean, she could not have had better free publicity for this book. I mean, it's not like she was only going on Fox News to promote it. She got, primetime CBS, going on actual network show. Yeah. So she had all of the opportunities to push this out. I mean, articles about some of the claims she made in the New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian. I know I covered some. I'm sure you covered some as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everybody was talking about this thing, but that's also part of the problem. See, all those salacious claims that she made already came out. So that's another thing I told my audience too. I was like, you don't need to buy it. If there's anything actually juicy in there, there's going to be an article on it that you can read for free somewhere online. So don't waste your money on this garbage. Yeah, it's not even good enough to be toilet paper at this point.
Exactly. And let me just add too, this is just another book in the long line of books that have been released by former Trump officials. I mean, we pretty much know a lot of the stuff that had already happened there. And so this was, I think, another cynical, just like a lot of these other books, cash grab. And it's good to see that it actually failed in this case. And also, let me too add one more thing. How maybe, because we know that a lot of these books that get released usually get bought back by campaigns. That's how they end up on like the New York Times bestseller list. That they did not do that this time. And I think that's very telling as well.
Yeah, it's weird too because it is campaign season. Everything is in high gear. People got lots of money to spend on their campaigns. We've seen all kinds of giveaways and raffles and whatnot. But this is just one they're like, let's just go put this in the bargain bin somewhere at the back of a Barnes & Noble maybe. Maybe somebody will pick it up. We don't want it for our campaign. We don't want anything to do with it. And Kellyanne has gone out and campaigned for people. Let's not forget that. It's not like, oh, well, she's not relevant to this campaign. She's been out there. She is absolutely pushing certain candidates. So it would make sense for them to push this, but it's old news. I mean, it's stuff that's patently false. And like you said, there's 1,000 other books already from all these other people with much better, juicier gossip than what she has to offer. So there's you put out a product that there was no demand for, kind of like Truth Social, right? You've already got all these other alternatives. You don't need another one out there, crowding the market. This is capitalism speaking to Kellyanne, saying thanks but no thanks.
And let me just add too, one last thing. It can be in the bargain bin along with Hillary Clinton's book from 2016. Let's not forget about that train wreck.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we move on? So let's go to some more serious stuff, of course, Pride Month related, and how Ohio is, doing some bad things, some not so good things. All right. Among the fake concern by Republican politicians over teachers grooming children, allegedly grooming children, just by telling them that gay people actually exist, as well as their safety, caring about kids' safety in the wake of mass shootings like Uvalde, conservatives in Ohio recently passed 2 bills. One would allow teachers to carry guns in schools, and another that literally mandates genital inspections for trans athletes. The latter bill being tucked into another unrelated piece of legislation, because of course, and it's called the Save Women's Sports Act, and it was added inside of the substitute House Bill 151 that would require schools and universities to designate separate single-sex teams in sports for each sex and bans anyone of the male sex to participate in any women's sports in schools or interscholastic sports. Also, very important in this sub HB 151 also includes a line that requires transgender person or participant whose sex is disputed to prove their sex with a signed physician statement, including information about their internal and external reproductive anatomy, testosterone levels, and an analysis of their genetic makeup. That amendment was added by Republican Representative Jenna Powell moments before the bill had passed. So here we are in Ohio, basically, and they are basically mandating that that the state do genital checks of children. Farron, what are your thoughts?
You know, the state of Ohio has such a horrendous record when it actually comes to things like sexual abuse of students. I mean, the U.S. gymnastics, Jim Jordan, Ohio State University. I mean, this state has already proven that they actually don't care about taking care of athletes, you know, male or female. They don't care about sexual assault. They don't care about anything except for, of course, gaining political points. Now, this is the kind of program here, these genital inspections, that is absolutely going to be abused. I mean, it's a massive violation of privacy. We all know that, you know, that's obvious, but the abuse that's going to come as a result of that is beyond imaginable at this point. And we're going to have a lot of people humiliated. And it's humiliation, obviously, if we're talking about school children, they're not going to live down. You know, everybody's going to know that, oh my God, Susie got pulled in for a genital inspection. This is going to ruin people's lives. Not only that, but it's addressing an issue that's not an actual issue. Let's never forget that either. You know, this is not a problem. It's a problem that they created in their minds and then crafted legislation to deal with something that doesn't really matter to anybody. I mean, this doesn't affect your life. This doesn't affect your job. It doesn't affect your pocketbook. You know, whether or not you can feed your family or get health care, those are real problems. No, we want to see your kids' junk, so drop your pants, according to this new legislation.
Yeah, you're right. It is absolutely a solution in search of a problem. And again, I touched on this during the intro, where you have all these Republicans that are going after public school teachers and saying that they're groomers, that they're grooming children, And these same politicians and same people that are going after these teachers for, you know, saying things like, oh, you know, I'm LGBT or I'm a trans person or whatever, they're the ones that are mandating genital checks. I mean, that's insane. Insane that we have this. And again, you know, you mentioned the embarrassment aspect. Another great point. Yeah, you have, you know, some women, cis women, right, who might be mistaken as a trans person. We do see that. And of course, that is going to be another unintended victim, right? Because remember, Republicans are intending for trans people to be victimized. But in this case, now they're going to have cis women, some certain cis women that like play sports, might be super tall or whatever, that are going to be put into this. And yes, it is absolutely going to be devastating to them, as well as being devastated to trans people. And it's just going to continue to further other people that are already suffering through so much social stigmatization, and as well as these, you know, horrible laws that are being passed in order to really go against them. It's just really horrible to see. It's just gross.
You know, I think back just a couple of weeks when the Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Board was announced, which was a stupid idea to begin with. I was totally against that. But all the Republicans freaked out and said, oh, my God, it's literally 1984. And then we have this same party that says, you know what? You know what we need? Don't you guys want to see these kids' genitals? How about we pass a law that gives us the authority to look in somebody's pants? But, God forbid, people try to fight misinformation. Right. I mean, they freak out over that. You know, they don't want the government slapping this is fake news label on anything, which honestly, I don't either. I think that is absolutely going to be abused. But then they turn around and have no problem saying show me what you're packing. I mean, that's nuts. I don't mean that as a pun either. I wish I had chosen my words better.
Yeah.
This is absurd. It's obscene. It's just, I struggle to wrap my head around it and to come up with the words because I'm so angry about it. And I think about what would happen, if it were my kids. If I found out that my kid was having their anything questioned or anything looked at by somebody else, I know what I would do, but I cannot say out loud what would happen to the people that did that.
Exactly. And it's ironic too. They want to see, as using your phrasing, right? They want to see what the kids are packing. But at the same time, when it comes to gun owners, speaking of the other bill that was also passed that people focused on, they want to make sure that they don't know that people are packing guns, especially teachers, right? And so arm everyone, but also do super invasive genital inspections in schools. I mean, this is incredibly dystopian.
Well, if you're going to be doing the genital inspections, the teachers need to have the guns so they can go, show me your genitals right now.
Of
Show
course,
me what you've got. But no, for real, look, my wife is an educator, right? She is a teacher. And I have to tell this story, and I'm going to, not name names. I don't even know most of the names. But a couple years ago, she had a student that was probably about a third her size. The student tried to get out of the school. My wife, being the teacher of this unit with these children that are, behavioral problems, had to go try to get the student back. And so it's in the back of the school where there's this drainage ditch that's filled with rocks. Again, this student, this young girl who is about a third my wife's size, ends up kicking her in the knee, knocking her down this little hill. My wife has permanent knee damage. Like, she'll never get better.
Wow.
And again, this was a tiny grade school girl that did this to her. Now, if my wife had had a gun at the point where she is laying on the ground, that student could have easily snatched it away from her.
Right.
And I use that story as an example of how easy it is for some students, regardless of size, to overpower teachers. And you want to tell us that these teachers should have weapons? I mean, this is absurd. We've had reports of the few schools where they've done this, of teachers leaving guns in the bathroom, leaving the drawer with the gun unlocked. This is a school shooting in the making. You take a student that maybe wants to do something like that, but otherwise couldn't get their hands on a weapon, you're basically handing it to them at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible idea. What are they doing in Ohio? I mean, let me get back to a point that you made way back when it comes to potential abuse. It just makes me think of there were a couple of coaches. I forget the name, but it was a trial in my home state of Michigan where there was a coach that had abused a lot of young girls, teens, for years and years and years. Was it Sandusky? I think it was might have been Jerry Sandusky. But I'm not entirely sure. But that was
Sandusky was Penn State. This is
okay.
Are you talking about the doctor?
Yeah. Okay. It was the doctor.
Yeah. And that was with the Olympic team too.
Yes.
A lot of those young women. I mean, they were young girls when a lot of this happened too, and that's what happens because of course
Nassar.
once we pass these laws, we don't ever really vet the people that we put in charge of them. And just like with prisons, we don't really vet who becomes a prison guard, and we pay them these, substandard wages, so it only attracts people that are desperate. And then we end up with abuse. It's abuse all across the board. I mean, no matter where you're looking, whether it's schools, correctional facilities, colleges, everywhere. We pick horrible people to oversee horrible laws, and it always leads to abuse. Just almost every time. And that's what we're setting ourselves up for here.
Exactly. And of course, you're seeing some of the most horrible people pass even more horrible laws to allow more horrible abuse. And so, unfortunately, the cycle continues. And I'm not sure what else to say. I don't think there's anything good or promising that you can pull from this at all. It's just all bad. Ohio, what the hell?
It really is, and there's not a whole lot else to add to this other than hopefully, I don't even know if you can trust the courts anymore, but maybe the courts are going to strike all this down and it goes away, but I have no faith in that anymore. Nothing matters in the court system. Nothing matters in state legislatures. It's a free-for-all. You can do whatever the hell you want, and there's nobody that's going to stop you at this point. Maybe the voters vote harder, folks. I guess that's what you got to do this year.
Yeah. Like, one of these days we're going to have a discussion on that as well, and the Democratic Party and their disastrous plans. But we'll save that for the next time that you're on the show. But for now, let's go back. Let's go to the next story here. It's conservatives versus pizza. Interesting. It appears that MAGA chuds are looking to cancel a company for combining two things that they really hate: books and drag queens. That's right. Conservatives have announced that they are boycotting Pizza Hut over a book recommendation in their Book It program, which encourages kids to read. And of course, we know that conservatives do not want children to read. Heresy. Now, the book itself is called Bigwig, authored by Jonathan Hillman and illustrated by Levi Hastings, and is meant for pre-K through third grade students. So, young kids, according to the book club's website. This wonderful read aloud celebrates the universal childhood experience of dressing up and the confidence that comes with putting on a costume. And it goes further than that, acknowledging that sometimes dressing differently from what might be expected is how we become our truest and best selves. Bigwig was published by Simon & Schuster in February and follows a child joining a costume competition who dresses in drag and becomes BB Bedazzle, according to the publisher. Oh no! Putting on a costume, the horror. Now, as you would expect, of course, conservatives on social media, including libs of TikTok, you may have heard a few things about them, have taken issue with the book and which has been running its reading incentive Book It program for decades. Bridget Gabriel tweeted this: "Pizza Hut has gone full woke. We must now make them broke." Another person adds, "Hi, Pizza Hut, are you aware how many pizza restaurants there are that don't try to turn kids into drag queens?" Another person adds, "Can screwed up adults give children a break and let them be children? I'm so sick of messed up people and companies on a quest to mess children. This is not necessary." Ultra Mega Man also weighs in, because he's ultra, right? "Can we report Pizza Hut to the police?" Total Karen behavior right there. "This is shameful." Mark Dice says, "Why is your Book It program promoting grooming young children into becoming drag queens? It's not what grooming means." And finally, one person says, "I will no longer eat Pizza Hut." Farron, what's your reaction to this?
I gotta find my list again here because I can't remember all the things we gotta boycott because we got I can't have Oreos, I can't play with my Mr. Potato Head anymore, I can't have M&Ms because they're not sexy enough for me, and now I can't have pizza. We could still have Papa John's though, because there's no problem, with Papa John saying the N-word. I didn't hear Republicans wanting to boycott that, even though, of course, they pushed him out of the company. But they were totally cool with that. Like, hey, that's we're gonna order some Papa John's tonight, kids. But
you know what? On that, I had over 30 pizzas or over 40 pizzas in 30 days.
And then the day of reckoning comes.
And then the day of reckoning. Apparently, when you get just don't be near that bathroom. Because that's what the day of reckoning means. Okay.
Big, massive dumps.
But look, the thing is, what these conservatives don't understand is that Pizza Hut is not going around gathering up little children and forcing them to read this book.
Right.
It's being presented as just a book that's featured. They're not even selling it. You know,
Right.
I mean, that's what's so weird about this. Just because they say like, okay, well, here's a list of books and there's one that they object to. This is absolute ridiculous behavior from the crowd that loves to cry about people being triggered and, oh, I've been canceled. Nobody gets more triggered. Nobody cancels more things than the modern conservative movement here in America. It is beyond parody how whiny 100%. They are. It's just, and I don't know if they choose to pretend it's not real or if they legitimately can't tell that they are what they think liberals are. But sometimes it's hilarious. A lot of times it's dangerous. And this is just straight up bigoted.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people on the conservative side love to forget how it's the Republicans that have always been the OG cancel culture warriors. I mean, again, trying to cancel rock music, trying to cancel rap music, which they're still trying to do, trying to cancel Harry Potter, which, again, we should probably cancel J.K. Rowling because she's TERF. But nonetheless, that's not the reason that they didn't like Harry Potter. Okay. Trying to cancel Dungeons and Dragons, trying to cancel. Did I mention rock music already? Might have already done so. Again, the list goes on of things that they have attempted to cancel. And so when they try to project upon the left, when really the left basically likes to call out bad behavior, and that's all that cancel culture really is. It's consequence culture. And, you know, they go apoplectic. They just have a complete and utter meltdown. How dare you get cancel culture? When they, of course, love to cancel things over the most ridiculous things. I remember seeing them set fire to their Nikes after giving Nike their money, which, okay, great, sure. Hey, you know, I got a bunch of unused shirts that you can buy and then burn, you know, with my face on them. I mean, go ahead and do that. Buy them all out, right? And you're really going to get me on that one. I mean, really, go ahead. It's just ridiculous.
It is, and let's also not forget. You know, you're going, a couple decades back too with the cancel. Let's not forget Barbara Bush trying to get The Simpsons, like telling people this is an evil show. Oh. Look how horrible this little Bart. I mean, my God. Sure, The Simpsons was like, I guess, considered edgy at the time, but
at the time,
you go back and you watch those old episodes, it's so tame. I mean, my God, my wife loves to watch these stupid murder shows, the Criminal Minds and things like that. Like, y'all are totally silent about all of this like graphic violence and gore because it's
show
cops.
A nipple.
Yeah,
but show a nipple.
My God,
They'll flip
show
out.
A nipple, say a swear. You know, oh, that's terrible. We've got to get rid of all these horrible things. Like, just lighten up. If it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. Let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. You know, I may, and I actually already talked to my kids about this, and this was before all of this. I said, let's order Pizza Hut. We haven't had Pizza Hut in years. Why not do it again? And then, you know, I saw this story and I was like, oh, well, I'm not doing it because I want to own the conservatives. I haven't tried it again in years, and maybe it's, I don't know. So now I feel weird.
Sometimes you just want some pizza.
Yeah.
Like
we
a
don't have
stuffed
a lot
crust.
of good locally owned around here, so that's part of our issue.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear you on that. We've got a few like chain restaurants in the area. I live in a pretty small town, so I think we really just basically only have chain restaurants at this point. But what are you gonna
that's
do?
a lot of us here too. You know, small town problems. People don't quite understand that. Like, why don't you just order local? It's like, look, if we had an awesome little local restaurant, I'd be there every day. I mean, look at me, I'd be there every day. But we got a Ruby Tuesday down the street. We've got Pedro's and Chipotle. But not a whole lot of local. There's a couple, and we do try to do it, but you know, you get what's there, and that's how our life goes. We're very off topic here, but
I mean, look, that's just what happens. So I guess we should move on, huh? All right. We're gonna continue this train. Let's see. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's have some fun with this one.
They just want you to think that all of a sudden the entire population is steadily turning gay or turning trans, just generation. Probably in about 4 or 5 generations, no one will be straight anymore. Everyone will be either gay or trans or non-conforming or whatever the list of 50 or 60 different options there are.
So that was Marjorie Taylor Greene claiming that, I guess they, whoever they are trying to convince you that everybody's going to be choosing to be gay or trans or whatever. You know what? Based. That's freedom. Real freedom. Personal choice and freedom for how you identify? Yes. Wonderful. Let's do it. Because it is totally a choice, right? I mean, Farron, when did you choose to be a straight cis male?
My wife made me do it. She said, look, you've got to do this. And I was like, yes, ma'am, whatever you say.
Happy wife, happy life.
But no, what I love about her little statement there is how she's actually telling on herself a little bit, because they want to think that this is obviously just an American thing. You know, we in America, these liberals are forcing everybody to be gay. But when she's talking about straight people going extinct, obviously that would have to be global. So clearly it's not something the U.S. is doing. It's obviously just the way that humans are. I mean, hell, maybe we are evolving as a species to be that way. If so, whatever. I mean, who cares, right? If people can be who they want to be, let them be that. And look, it's not necessarily, I think, that there's just more people choosing these things. It's that people no longer have to hide, or at least a lot of them feel like they don't have to hide. Republicans would love to have them hide. But there's now communities that they can be a part of, you know, online, obviously. You know, they're accepted on social media outside of those conservative spheres. They can find support groups. They can talk to people, video chat, and all of these wonderful things. They can watch YouTube videos of people sharing their experiences, and it helps them to come out. So again, I don't know that there's an increase. Maybe there is. I don't, you know, if there is, great. If there's not, whatever. But it's that people no longer feel like they have to hide as much as maybe they did 20, 30, 100 years ago, back where this kind of thing was labeled a mental illness. Let's not forget about that.
Right.
There was a time in American history where literally they would tell you, if you're gay, no, you're mentally ill. You need to be checked out. So people would hide it.
Right.
But they don't have to do that anymore. Republicans want to go back to those days. They would love to stick anyone who says, I have gender dysphoria or I'm non-binary. They would love to say, wonderful, let's take you to the asylum and lock you away forever so we don't ever have to see you. That's what they want. They want to go back to those days. Yeah.
Party of freedom. Party of freedom. But no, when you were saying all that, it just kind of reminded me how, like, this is, I mean, you and I both know Republicans are pretty fear-based. Everything that they talk about generally comes back to one thing. Be afraid. Be afraid. We are the most fearful people on the planet. If you're a conservative, that is, fear basically runs your life. And so it is that she combines a couple of different things there, right? First, there's the they. They're telling us who's they? The same people running the Jewish space laser? I mean, what do you like? Who is they? Right? And it's just this weird nebulous thing. But again, it gets them to be super afraid of whatever, right? Whatever this thing is. And again, they're also afraid of admitting that there are people who are different, that they are actually losing control of the conversation, that they've lost control of this part of society that they believe they have control over, which is, of course, what people do in their own bedrooms, who they love. Again, you want to talk about, who's actually in favor of freedom. It's not conservatives, because they're the ones that always want to control what you do in your own bedroom, who you have sex with, how you have sex, how much you have sex. and you know, having birth control and what you do over your own body. So it's very, very authoritarian, you know?
It is. Excuse me. And it's like, you know, I think it was Brian Tyler Cohen just pointed out on Twitter within the last 24 hours, like Texas has a law about how many sex toys you can own.
Oh,
there's a limit. You can only have 6, but you could have as many AR-15s as you want. So who's really the intrusive party here? Like,
exactly.
What I don't even understand the limit on the sex toys. Like, nope, you've got 6. That ought to do you for now. Like, who came up with that legislation? And what was their thinking? Did they open their wife's nightstand and say, "Oh, hell no. Well, I am legislating this."
Sexual anarchy.
For real. And, you know, you gotta, I guess, tamp down on what people are doing in the bedroom, of course, just to make everybody as barren and unfun as they are. That's it always comes back to the bedroom with them. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you remember Ken Cuccinelli trying to ban blowjobs in Virginia? Virginia is for lovers unless you do that.
It's so sick. And a lot of these laws, though, they also, I mean, they come back to what we're talking about. This is about trying to go after the LGBTQ community. That's why the anti-sodomy laws, you know, were all the rage at one point in this country, that they're trying to target those people because they think those are the only ones who really get to go out and have any fun. So, you know,
exactly.
Again, if I can't have it, nobody can. It's all illegal. You stick with your 6 sex toys. Don't make me knock it down to 3. It's all about control and oppression with these laws. That's what it always comes down to.
Yeah, don't make me go and confiscate those. Oh, you'd love to, wouldn't you? But no, like it is funny though that whenever they make this argument, it kind of like makes me think, you know, of the idea that a lot of these people who are very, very vocal about it, maybe they want to be gay. Maybe they actually are. Maybe they actually are gay or trans. I mean, they keep saying things like, what? I can't believe people are choosing to be gay and trans. Well, if you think that's the choice that people are making and you're mad at them for it, then maybe you might want to look in on yourself and try to, you know, ask why. Because again, I can tell you, I'm a straight cis male. I didn't choose it. That's just how I am. It's part of who I am. And so, I mean, again, this is not a choice. So stop trying to take away other people's choice. You know what I'm saying? And that seems to be all they're interested in doing.
It really is. And they don't understand. Well, I think they do actually understand. They're pretending to not understand. Right. Some of them are. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't understand anything. She is very confused about all aspects of life. But for the most part, most of these conservatives, they do understand, and they just want to confuse people because confused people, as you pointed out, they're easier to scare. You know, you gotta be afraid, whether it's afraid of transgender individuals, whether it's afraid of Pizza Hut, maybe you're afraid of a corporation talking about their politics. Maybe you're afraid of voter intimidation. Whatever it is, you got to be afraid. You got to have a gun because, you know, you're so scared. And you got to vote for me because I'm the only one that can protect you from all of these evils floating around out there that you also still need to be afraid of. That's the Republican Party in a nutshell. I just wrote their next, 500 campaign ads for them there.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
We'll end with that. Now to the next segment. I'm sorry, I'm having a workout with that thing. I'm having too much fun on this show. Make it so easy. All right. Here we go. Speaking of guns, that's a good segue. Republican Representative Matt Gaetz believes that voters should be armed when they go to the polls. Can you guess which voters you would prefer to have armed? Now, let me give you some details here. During a recent House Judiciary Committee meeting on the Protecting Our Kids Act, that's a bill that's been proposed after the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. We've had like 20 mass shootings since then, but that's where 19 children and 2 adults were killed by an 18-year-old gunman. And so that's, of course, why the bill would raise the minimum age to purchase certain firearms from 18 to 21, require firearms to be stored in a lockbox or other safe storage, and tries to prevent gun trafficking. Notably missing is an assault weapons ban, of course. Nonetheless, these very modest, and I think they're modest, gun control measures were too much for Republicans. And they turned the hearing into an absolute clown show. You had, of course, Louis Gohmert, Thomas Massie, and Matt Gaetz. In fact, here's Gaetz proposing that no, we shouldn't raise the age limit on guns. In fact, we should have more people with more guns, especially if you're going to go to vote. Take a look.
I sort of like Congressman Massey's legislation that maybe everyone who's a voter or on their way to vote ought to have the opportunity to carry a firearm to ensure that they're not subject to any intimidation.
Intimidation. Farron.
You know, voter intimidation is in fact illegal. You cannot do it. However, it's not a capital offense. It's not something that if you do voter intimidation, you don't get the death penalty for it. So why would you need a gun, right? You can't just kill somebody or shoot them or whatever because of voter intimidation. Not to mention the fact, what was it, a day ago, 2 days ago, Politico came out with that massive report about the Republicans literally planning a massive voter intimidation campaign. They've been holding workshops. They've had Zoom calls. All this is out in the open. I mean, these calls, everything Politico got their hands on. Republicans are trying to stack Democratic precincts with Republican poll workers whose sole job is to intimidate people and harass them into not voting. So if Matt Gaetz has his way, oh my God, that's going to be a lot of dead Republicans because those are the people that literally have a plan to intimidate voters. It's all spelled out. They're not even being secretive about it anymore. So, Matt, careful what you wish for, buddy, because your party is planning a massive voter intimidation scheme come November.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we get the Black Panthers involved or, Antifa? Wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't that be very interesting to see what would happen then if you have... And again, I think it was Cenk Uygur that made a point on yesterday's TYT show. Where he had talked about, he's like, okay, I've got a plan. If you're going to do this voter intimidation campaign, then we should do a voter intimidation campaign. We should go out to every Republican district and watch them. And then, if they start challenging our voters and they start challenging our votes, then we're going to challenge every single Republican voter's vote. Now, if they do nothing, of course, then, we're not going to do anything. But if they start this, then we should damn well finish it because that is voter intimidation. And they are absolutely trying to come and suppress the vote, suppress Democratic votes so that they can win.
And if Matt Gaetz has his way, that would really just result in massive shootouts, right?
Which they love.
I guess the Democrats would have to be shooting at the Republicans. The Republicans would have to be shooting at the Democrats. And then, of course, if you happen to be in a stand your ground state, everybody around who feels threatened, they got to start shooting at both sides. So you just end up with nothing but a bloodbath. And I guess no votes end up getting cast because everybody's dead because everybody has a gun. That's I hate to say that's the future that conservatives want, but it kind of seems like that's the future conservatives want. I mean, here's the thing that gets me. And again, I work with lawyers. I work at a law firm. I do publish a legal magazine, but I am not a lawyer. But I think a very skilled lawyer might be able to argue in favor of gun control. Just the fact that I brought up earlier about voter intimidation not being a capital offense.
Right.
All of these pro-gun laws, including the stand your ground laws, what do? They make a capital offense out of everything. You're allowed to kill somebody, but by doing so, are you not robbing this person of their right to a trial? Right? That's a constitutional right. We have a right to a jury of our peers, right? A trial with a jury of our peers. But you've now violated that person's constitutional right, whether you're a police officer or just some nut job who thinks, hey, cool, somebody's in my backyard, I get to shoot them. Why can we not challenge it on those grounds? Why can we not argue that these bills are unconstitutional because they rob you of a different constitutional right? I mean, that's how they've expanded gun laws in this country, by arguing that certain things violate the Second Amendment. Why is that the only amendment that conservatives give a damn about? I guarantee you none of them could even tell you what's in the Third Amendment. I promise you they couldn't tell you what the Third Amendment is.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, they have not been able to count past two. You know, they only know the first and the second. And really, they don't really even know all that much since they seem to have such a skewed, understanding of both of those amendments. I mean, you could go and talk about how they believe that, that the First Amendment is, a completely like unfettered free speech, which to them means I get to call someone the N-word without any consequences. That's what they interpret that to be. And as far as the freedom of religion, also enshrined in the First Amendment, they think that no. That just means that I get to have my religion and lord it over you and use that to control you. That's the First Amendment. Why are you infringing upon my freedom of religion? And again, another skewed reading of the Second Amendment means they can have any weapon that they want, as many weapons as they want, take it anywhere they want. I mean, hey, if I want an RPG, if I want a rocket launcher or tank or landmines, shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed, Farron. Why I know, are you stepping on my liberty?
It is so funny because they always, especially this past week, that's the part, shall not be infringed.
Yep.
Cool. You left out the well-regulated part.
Yep.
I mean, those are the second and third words of that amendment. It's right there at the beginning. I don't know how you even missed that. I could understand if it was at the end and you had only read the part you wanted to and stopped, but it's at the beginning. There's no excuse for that. Well-regulated, blah, 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 militia, all that. But they don't want to because they don't need to. But here's the thing, and I've mentioned this in multiple interviews, and I'm going to say it here just to make sure that everybody understands this. Most gun control measures, most proposals in this country are supported by more than 80% of the country at large and more than 70% of members of the NRA. The only place where there is any real dissent or debate about gun laws is in legislatures, the federal and the state level. When you get to the general public, more than 80% of us, left, right, center, whatever, we all agree something has to be done. Let's pass these laws. So there is no debate among the American people. It only exists in legislatures and, of course, conservative media. Beyond that, they're the minority. They're the fringe. And we have to start treating them as such. We have to stop acting like this is a debate. And we have to point out that these people are fringe nut jobs that are getting the rest of us killed.
Absolutely. And again, it's sad that we have a system that is conducive to allowing this fringe to control our politics. And of course, that happens because of the outsized influence of money in politics. We live under corporate rule where special interests that have the money, they're able to buy off our politicians. And of course, you also have massively gerrymandered districts where you have conservatives, Republican politicians that are able to choose their voters. So they'll choose the ones who will always be, guaranteed to turn out, which happens to be the most fringiest type of people. Yeah, the ones that are the extremists, that always come out and vote for them in every single election. And they pander to those people and they take these big checks from not just the NRA, but of course, gun manufacturers. And there are other groups that are actually even more extreme than the NRA on issues, if you can believe it. And so those are the people, that's the fringe that controls our political system these days. And I don't think, and look, I'm super pessimistic that we're going to ever get any sort of gun control passed in this system as it is, because of that fringe, because of that money in politics. We know the problems, and the American people, you're right, absolutely do agree on a lot of these, common sense gun measures. And let me just add too, bring in the fact that because I think the American people know that Congress will not be able to really do anything, that's why we have polls where you have support for one of the few things that might actually, pass, and that's arming teachers. I think Americans, citizens, are at the point of where they know the government's not going to be able to do anything because of these interests, and say, I don't know, fuck it, let's arm the teachers. We got to do something. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. We're desperate for that, for something. And this is where we're at because of our just absolutely broken system.
It is. And without fixing the system, which, look, I have no problem. If we want to abolish the Senate, I'm all for it. I mean, the Senate seems to be what is holding up pretty much everything in this country for many decades now. I'm okay with that going away. We are one of the, I think we're the longest running country that's still under their original constitution too, by the way. We haven't changed anything because, oh my God, a bunch of white guys 250 years ago who never washed their genitals, they told us this is how things have to be, so God says we got to listen to them. No, they were a bunch of old, or actually younger than they should be, racists, right, who would be just absolutely confounded by anything we have today. Jefferson, I believe it was, actually wanted the U.S. Constitution to expire every couple generations, just so they and everybody else that comes after couldn't tie down future generations with our old laws. He was the only one who understood, like, hey, I think things are going to keep changing. So maybe, what's relevant right now in the 1700s, maybe that's not going to work so well in 100 years or 200. But nope, it's absolute. They're the smartest people that ever lived. They're never wrong. You can't change anything. Like, no, we can, folks. And I think it's time for a drastic overhaul of the entire system, from the Supreme Court to the Senate to the presidency. All kinds of things that we could do to catch up to the rest of the world that right now is straight up leaving us in the dust. We're still living in 1776 right now. They're already headed to the future.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of great points about how we, not we, but how there's a lot of people that deify the founding fathers, when, of course, we know that a lot of them were slave owners. A lot of them had some pretty terrible ideas about women in government. They weren't originally allowed to vote. It was only white landowners that had the ability to vote. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't be deifying people who, as you put it, didn't wash their balls.
Testicles.
Okay. And maybe, I don't know, there are some good ideas, and we keep the ideas that work, we keep the ideas that are good, but actually evolve. Guaranteeing people have, like a workers' bill of rights, for example. That's another great idea, where we actually do have rights to, fair pay, health care, things that actually enhance society, as opposed to whatever the hell we're doing now, which certainly is not an enhancement on society.
Well, and conservatives also love to say, like, well, you can't touch the Second Amendment. It's in the Constitution. It's untouchable. We once had an amendment that said you couldn't sell alcohol in this country.
Exactly.
I mean, I think they all forget about prohibition. Like, we in our Constitution said no more alcohol. You guys are cut off. And then we very quickly were like, wait a minute. Ooh, wow.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. Let's write a new one. So, the Constitution can be changed. If we can't just get a new one, we can change things. We can change one amendment with another amendment. We have done it before. We could do it again. We just won't do it.
And you know what? The fact that we can change this is one of the brilliant things that the founders did put in there. So credit where credit is due, because I think, as you had mentioned before, they knew that you were going to need to update these things as the time goes by.
Well, and even they did it with the Bill of Rights, because they realized quickly, like, oh crap, we forgot this whole list over here, guys. Put it in.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to one more story here. Again, this is sort of gun related, but also cancel culture. So, and of course, your home state of Florida. So, think you'll enjoy this. All right. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida recently vetoed funding for a sports team in apparent retaliation for a tweet about gun control. So now the Florida Republican signed his new state's new budget on Thursday for the coming fiscal year. According to NPR's Tampa Bay outlet, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a record $109.9 billion budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, but vetoed some very interesting vetoes. For one, including funding for a Pasco sports complex and an H. Lee Moffitt Cancer Center facility in Pasco County. Among other items vetoed were funds to build the Tampa Bay Rays $35 million practice facility. Interesting. Outtick reported DeSantis blocking the allocation after the team tweeted about a recent mass shootings across the country. Here's Bobby Burak of Outkick writing, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis plans to veto a $35 million legislation for a Pasco County facility that's earmarked for the Tampa Bay Rays spring training. DeSantis' decision is in response to the Rays politicizing recent shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde ahead of a matchup with the Yankees in May. The report cited a tweet from the team from May 26 that asked for donations to Everytown for gun safety. I want to show you that here. So it says that we all deserve to be safe in schools, grocery stores, places of worship, our neighborhoods, houses in America. The most recent mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde have shaken us to the core. The Tampa Bay Rays are mourning these heartbreaking tragedies that took the lives of innocent children and adults. This cannot become normal. We cannot become numb. We cannot look the other way. We know that if nothing changes, nothing changes. They go on, of course, to commit to giving $50,000 to Everytown for gun safety, and said that we understand that no single organization can solve this crisis alone, but working together, we can make an impact. We invite you to join us and do what you can, when you can, where you can, because our lives depend on it. Now, this declaration, of course, was enough to infuriate Governor DeSantis, who was using his powers of government to basically punish political enemies that don't agree with him. Farron, what are your thoughts?
As a political enemy that does not agree with my governor, Ron DeSantis, I'm worried. Yeah, I don't want his gazpacho police coming for me. Here's the thing. First of all, just to get this out of the way, I don't think we as taxpayers should be building sports stadiums for privately owned teams. That's me.
Fair enough. I do agree with that.
Yeah. Second point, what DeSantis is doing here, there was a time in this country, I guess it's past now, but that's illegal. That is absolutely an abuse of power, which is something that people in the past in this country have been prosecuted for. So, I don't care if the Tampa Bay Rays don't get $35 million. It's a privately owned team. If you want a practice facility, you pay for it. Don't make me pay for it. That's my tax dollars here. But the reason he did it for is absolutely should be criminal. Just like with Disney, like, okay, they don't get special. I don't care if Disney gets special privileges. I do care about you abusing your power to punish your enemies. That is the problem. It's not that, oh, poor Disney, poor Tampa Bay Rays. They're going to be fine. We're getting screwed. And he is doing things that probably even 10 years ago would have meant the end of somebody's political career. But here it's just another Friday for us. You and I cover these kinds of things every day. And for the length of time that we have both been doing this, think about the stories you originally covered on this show. Think about the the outrages and the things of that nature that wouldn't even be a blip on the radar today.
Right.
I mean, I've been doing this since the Bush administration. And hell, George W. Bush is back up to like a 60, 65% approval rating. Everybody looks back like, oh, things weren't so bad.
War
back
criminal.
then. Right. Those were some of the worst years imaginable. But because everything today is just so much more outrageous, none of it ever gets covered. And that's why we end up with people like DeSantis who can engage in these egregious abuses of power because nobody gets held accountable. And it actually kind of goes back to the Bush administration. Maybe if we'd thrown a couple people in jail when Eric Holder became Attorney General, maybe if he hadn't said, I want to look forward instead of backwards, maybe we wouldn't have all these extremists today who understand that, hell, I can do anything and get away with it. Why wouldn't I take advantage of that? That's the mentality today.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, what's really dangerous about Ron DeSantis is the fact that he is using this fake right-wing populism, right? And I call it fake populism because it doesn't actually help the people, but it has the appearance of, I'm taking on corporations. You know, and we've seen this, and that's what, again, makes him incredibly dangerous. He pretends to be in the side of everyday people while pushing in a very extreme ideology. And again, if you want to go after corporations, you and I, we're here for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, Disney has had numerous issues with not paying enough to their employees. They've had issues with, mistreatment, what have you, right? That's nothing that these so-called right-wing populists will ever go after these companies for. It always happens to be the culture war issues. It's this company went too woke, or this company decided to speak out against, against unfettered gun ownership, which happens to go against the interests of my donors and, of course, some of my most extreme voters, the people who put me in power in the first place. And so we've got to crush them. We've got to come down on them, oftentimes also at the expense of the taxpayer. I think it was the Disney deal or the Disney issue that actually landed on the taxpayer in Florida to end up having to pay more in taxes because Disney, they got, a $2 billion essentially handout. So Disney's like, you're going to take away my responsibility to pay for these utilities and things like that. Great. Sure. Oh, punish me harder, DeSantis, please.
Well, and you know what's funny about it too is everybody say like, oh, no, because now Disney's going to have to, they're not going to get these special privileges. The counties are going to determine what happens. Do you know how much easier it is for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to buy a county commission, to buy 3 or 4 seats on there? It's a lot easier and a lot cheaper than buying an entire state government. Disney's making out like a bandit here.
Yep.
But here's another thing I want to propose then. Okay, if we're looking at DeSantis and he can punish his political enemies and get away with it, every Democratic governor in this country immediately needs to say, okay, y'all want to do this? Let's do it. Exxon, you've been covering up climate change for decades. I am revoking your license to operate in my state. You can no longer be in California. You can't be in New York. You can't be in Wisconsin. I'm coming after you because you disagree with me on settled science. Now, we could do it. They could do it, not we. If you and I could do it, we would have done it.
Yeah, I know, right?
These governors, these Democratic governors, guys, they're going full extremist. What the hell are y'all doing? Do something. Retaliate in any way you can. And I know that sounds dirty, but we're actually talking about corporations that are doing evil things. They're destroying the planet. They're destroying people's lives. People are dying. Go after Big Pharma. They're in Democratic controlled states. Go after these oil companies that are operating in your states. Go after the price gougers. Y'all could do it. You're literally go after Wall Street. Democratic controlled state, right? Plenty we could do with them. They won't do it. They won't do it because they get the money too.
Yeah, exactly. They just heard everything that you said, and this was their reaction.
No.
Not going to do it. No. You go after my corporate donors. No, never. And again, that goes back to how dangerous Ron DeSantis is, because he's one of the few that is actually willing to go after corporations, and that will give him the appearance of being a populist. And I think that's an image that he's been trying to cultivate, perhaps to run for a higher office. And that's another thing that's incredibly dangerous, because, I mean, you look at what he's doing now with punishing political enemies. Even if we agree that, they shouldn't, these companies shouldn't get taxpayer funding to begin with. But again, on the reasons that he's going after these companies, you could see him in a higher office with more power doing the same thing on a much larger scale, going after, for example, news organizations, or maybe reporting negative stories. And so that's pretty disturbing, and that's pretty dangerous.
Well, and we also know that he already has an enemies list that has a lot of good leftist reporters here in the state of Florida on it. They have dossiers, essentially, on some of these people, like Thomas Kennedy, Grant Stern. So he already wants to do what you're suggesting. I was a little disappointed, not gonna lie. Apparently, I am not on this enemies list yet, so I gotta work.
You gotta work harder.
I know. I think that's a failure of me, and I accept that failure. I will promise you, next time he updates that enemies list, I want to be on it. I really, truly do. And his spokesperson, Christina Pushaw, ended up following me on Twitter a couple months ago, and then I noticed like 2 days later she was unfollowing me. So I think she may have made a mistake at some point.
Yeah.
But so
definitely a mistake.
That shows that she was aware of me. So maybe we get that updated list. Maybe I'm on the top. Maybe I need to look over my shoulder a little bit more frequently. But it's terrifying, and I'm saying that as somebody not just a Florida resident, but also with Matt Gaetz as my congressman. So it sucks.
I don't know how you do it, man. I just don't know. Oof.
I wish I had lots of Pizza Hut. I guess I'll do that tonight, and that'll own them.
Yeah, that's right.
Pizza Hut and M&Ms.
Pizza Hut and M&Ms. That's right. Farron, that's all the stories we got. You want to stick around while I read some super chats? A lot of love for you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Jonathan Leiter says, in honor of Pride Month, guys, will you and Farron pretend to kiss your screens? It's great having you two together. Help keep our sad fantasies alive, please.
My camera is like 5 feet away from me, so I can't. But I got that for you.
Much love. The more Dystopian Dragon says hello. Well, hello, Dystopian Dragon. Jedi Dragon Protector says GOP just want to create the headlines they want. Gabby Mathis says, love your shirt, have the same. And Hart Farron, let's say gay. Yes, let us say gay. Yesterday on the show, I said it should be the slogan, live gay or die. Freedom.
I like that. That's good.
Julie Swenson says, my son has special needs with a gun obsession. He's fascinated with how they work and shoot. Not fascinated with hurting anyone. But if his teacher was armed, he would spend his entire day trying to get that gun. That is a great point. Yikes. You have anything to say to that?
I think we'd see a lot of that. I mean, look, there's probably a lot of kids in school that haven't actually seen guns. I mean, let's be real about that, especially depending on where you are in the country. Maybe they've seen it from afar on an officer's hip, but they've never seen one really up close and in person. It's intriguing. As far as they know, it's just something they see on TV. Oh, that looks crazy cool. I want to say, I just want to touch it. It is a terrifying thought. And I'm sure that there's, millions of kids that would have the same thing because they don't see the consequences. Exactly. And not saying they would do anything malicious, but my God, what are we I forget the statistic, but a child shoots somebody in this country like every day, every hour, something like that. It's a horrifying number, but it's not because there's, all these evil 2-year-olds. It's because they get a hold of something they don't understand, and pow, somebody's dead.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, statistic as well, and I was like, yeah, that happens a lot. And by the way, I think I read another statistic the other day where you have children that are, I think, the biggest victims of gun violence in this country now. It's not police, right? More police died of COVID in the last 2 years. But children are the biggest victim of gun violence. More children die of guns in this country than anywhere else. It's horrifying. Horrifying.
It really is. And the only thing they have is let's just put more guns out there, see what happens.
More guns.
It's like if you're making a soup and you're like, man, this soup is way too salty. Let me fix that by just more salt. It's the dumbest logic ever, but hey, that's all they've got. That is their only plan, is throw more guns at it, and maybe eventually everybody's dead.
Yeah. Mutually assured destruction, apparently. Mark Davis says, Jeff and Farron, hope you and yours are doing well. Don't forget to put some gazpacho in your Peachtree dish and heat it with Jewish space lasers.
Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police.
Peachtree dish.
Jermaine Smith Sr. says, nothing, but thank you for the very kind $20. Witchy Dragon says, Jeff and Farron, thank you for the great reporting. Aaron Pimentel says, DeSantis reminds me of Homelander from The Boys in more ways than one. Thanks for the show and all the content you two produce.
It's not easy, is it? I mean,
I hear you.
Actually, speaking of just all the content we produce, I do have to say this, because I got into a conversation the other day with somebody talking about it, is that it doesn't ever stop.
No.
You're gonna finish your show today, just like when I finished all my stuff earlier today. And what are we gonna do then? We're gonna keep looking at the news, because we're gonna get ready for the next show. Over the weekend. Even if we're out, even if we're having fun, even if we're doing whatever, we're gonna check Twitter. God knows we're gonna check Twitter. And we're gonna go to all these websites that we go to every day. I know you've got a list. I've got my list.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna constantly look. Like, I just wish people did understand that a little more. I'm not trying to say that, we're such great, wonderful people, but at least for me mentally and everybody else I've talked to, this job doesn't ever stop.
It doesn't.
We're always thinking, looking, crafting ideas in our heads, and so that is why when we end up with situations where we get screwed by a YouTube algorithm and all these grifters are getting millions of views, it's infuriating, because this is a 24-hour-a-day job.
It is.
And it is grinding. It is taxing. It's not always pleasant. We try to keep it fun. But folks, like, this is so much work. Like, I know we make it look so easy. Trust me, it's not something you want to do. Unless you want to do it, then I encourage you, please do it, because it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the nonstop avalanche of news, and of course, nonstop terrible opinions. The hot takes. There's so many hot takes. It's so bad. Like you and I know. We know. When you know, you know. And so thank you for saying that, because I try not to go into that, because I do love what I do, and I know you do too. For me, like, I don't want to sound like I'm like in the super privileged, like, I'm in a super privileged position and complaining about doing a job that I like. But you're right. There is so much to this. There is a lot more than I thought than when I had originally gotten into this. And there just always seems to be more that gets added to the plate as far as, managing all the different things that you have to do just to even make a couple of bucks,
Yeah.
you know, doing what we do because you got to eat, you know, and you're up against these algorithms that are pretty stacked against you, and you know, and again, doing all the work to make sure that you're correct, and then you get something wrong and everybody's up your butt, you know, about that. And it's just like, well, you know, it happens, and like you do the best that you can.
And the frivolous defamation lawsuits that Republicans love to file.
Yep.
I don't know
Power
about you.
Rittenhouse?
Yeah, I've been hit with a couple over the last couple of years. They all, you know, they dropped them on their ends. But again, part of that is because this isn't my day job. I actually work, you know, for one of the greatest lawyers in this country, and have access to all of the greatest lawyers in this country through my, you know, legal work and things like that. So whenever we get hit with one, it's kind of fun. I'm always excited, and I want them. I'm like, no, dude, take this, like, go with it. And they'll send them or make phone calls, and pretty much within minutes, they're like, yeah, we're not going to do this. We're sorry. But
hook me up.
I don't think anybody else is in that position. But
Yeah.
they are weaponizing defamation lawsuits against people like us. So that's just another thing to throw out there, folks, that we have to deal with. For me, it's funny. For everybody else, not so much.
Yeah.
So it sucks. But it's a great job, though. We do love it. We really do. I have more fun doing this than any of the other jobs that I have or have ever had. So this is fun. But you gotta be all in on it, because if you half-ass it, you know, it's never gonna work. There's so many people doing it now. You've got to be unique. You got to be smart, and you've got to be willing to give yourself to this.
Exactly. You got to put that whole ass in there, the whole ass, not just the half or not the quarter, not even the 3/4. Both cheeks, deep. 3 levels deep, perhaps. Dystopian Dragon also mentioned Peter Navarro. That's another piece of news that unfortunately we did not get to today, about that whole thing. I'm sure, Farron, you probably covered that, or will at some point. That's going to be Monday's show for me. So
Me too, yeah. It's... All the weekend stuff has already been recorded, but yeah, it's already on my Monday rundown. Because
Monday.
we never stop.
Never stop. Can't stop, won't stop. It's true. All right, so on Twitch we just have the Jayhawker 41 the Ball Dragon resubbing for a month at tier 1. Thank you for staying with us for 8 months. Really, really appreciate that. All right, so for all of you, thank you for joining. Farron, can you stay a little bit after?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe talk a little shop for a bit. Everybody else, thank you for watching the stream. Really appreciate it. Please like and share if you haven't already. Again, lots and lots of fun with you, Farron. Thank you for joining the show. Really, really appreciate your time. It's awesome.
It was a blast. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Hopefully, we'll see you back here again sometime.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Again, everybody, thank you very much. Love you, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We will see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Big, massive dumps.
Eurovicia, they say, pronounce it Eurovicia. A real beautiful company. Obama.
Disappointed!
Internet.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.